great thing, and I just want to thank Peter for being the lead dog on this. It's great. So I was told 20 minutes, and anybody that knows me who I've recruited would know 20 minutes is I better get my ass moving here. So we'll get rolling. So one of the things that I want to make sure I'm just trying to get to. I gotta move that. There we go. Slideshow from the beginning. Fantastic. Okay, so one of the things I've taken over in our program of being the OC, well, it would have been for 2020, but now it's been 2021. And the first thing I realized when I started to get myself in this situation was, oh boy, it's been a few years since I've done this. What are the steps I need to go through? So the first, God, where are we? First thing is coming up with a philosophy. How are we going to attack this? What do we want to be known on offense? So it just simply, what is the style and attitude you want the offense to be known for? And I think this is a big piece. We spent a lot of time in the last little while talking about their goals, philosophies, mission statements, and things like that. It's just a good reset. So once we kind of get to this point of understanding what we want to be known for, off we go. So the second part to this becomes personnel. And I think this is my biggest beef with all coaches is they don't necessarily look at the people they have to work with before they start building their offense. The first thing they do is they start thinking about, okay, well, I saw this play and I like this and I want to run this. And the next thing you know, you have 600 different plays and you have no idea what your players can do. So the first thing that I did in this off season was I started to evaluate the talent we have on our roster. We just ran some base stuff, simple plays, but then I got a chance to evaluate what can my quarterback do? What's his arm strength like? Then does he have the ability to read? Is he athletic? How am I going to sort of create this? And, it doesn't even matter what level. You could be coaching 10-year-olds, you could be coaching in the pros. But if you don't go and look at the strengths and weaknesses of your players, there's a problem. The next thing is, what system fits their skill set the best. I mean, this is something, everybody talks about all the buzzwords that are so exciting right now. We talk about RPOing this and we talk about, bubble screening that. Well, what can my players do? Maybe I've got a big offensive line. Maybe that's my strength. Maybe my quarterback is my strength, but maybe not as a passer. Maybe he's a runner. Or, maybe I've got a passer who can't run. So how am I going to base my offense of that? Do I have a go-to running back? Do I have a go-to receiver? And I need to learn to utilize these players the best that I can. And I think if you start here, you got a chance because every year, depending on what level or what age you coach, you might have a lot of turnover. For us at our level, we might get somebody for 5 years, but it might be 2 or 3 years before they actually get on the field and start performing. And then the next thing is now you can start to talk about what you believe in. The system has to be something that you believe in. Now, if you want to run a spread offense and you don't have the personnel, okay, that's when the challenge comes into play. Now you need to figure out how you're going to tie the strengths that you have as a offensive coach into what the players can do. And you got to be able to sell it because you have to be able to believe in it and they have to be able to believe in what you're coaching them. And I think this is a key word that I would that probably doesn't get utilized enough, and that's fundamentals. If you're going to coach a system, you better know all the ins and outs of it. You better know all the details of that, because if you can spend the time to coach that, now you got a chance to have an offense that's going to work. And if you know, too many times people see things. I think we're all guilty of that. I've done it myself. I've watched the play and I went, oh, wow, that would be awesome. That would fit great here. And then you don't coach it up properly. The fundamentals aren't there. And the next thing you know, it's just a dead play that you wasted time on. Whoops. Did I miscount? Must have miscounted. Sorry about that. Now the next thing is, you know, what's the cadence you're going to use? So okay, so now I've got I've evaluated my personnel. I have an idea of what I believe in. Now, to me, this is the one piece that, you know, your cadence sets up everything in what you're going to do. You know, are you going to use color, numbers? Are you going to use names? Are you just going to go down set hot? Are you going to go set hot? Are you going to practice, you know, quick counts and all of these kind of things? Because the cadence helps set up the rest of your offense. You know, people will talk about, hey, we want to have a no huddle offense or that 3-minute offense or a tempo offense. Well, to run those type of offenses, you need to have a good cadence that makes sense to the team, and it's simple and it communicates exactly what you're looking for in that situation. So we talk about building this communication. You know, how will my system be communicated to the players? Because this is the next thing. You know, I'm sure a lot of the coaches don't necessarily have a lot of meeting time. So how are you going to be able to communicate what you want to do to these players? Is it going to be easy? You know, do you want to start in, if I signal in the plays, do I send in personnel first? Is it formationally? Am I changing personnel? Maybe I have a small roster and I'm not necessarily changing personnel every play. What kind of formations am I going to use, and how am I going to communicate to the team on the field what those are? You know, numbering system for the run game. Well, a lot of people have gotten away from that. You know, it's become very much the word, and how is that word going to be? Well, maybe that doesn't fit because now you have too many words. I have a word for my personnel. I have a word for my formations. I have a word for my run game. I have words for my pass pros. I have words for my pass plays. And now all of a sudden it became too wordy. So maybe you're going to look at a numbering system. You know, what about your pass protections? That's always the big one. You know, is it a concept of a 6-man protection? Is it an empty protection? Is it a quick protection? How are you going to go along and communicate those? And how does the quarterback get the play from the coach? And, you know, there's so many different ways. You know, people talk about wristbands, and then, you know, I'm going to signal to the quarterback, and he's going to either read it or it's going to be, he's going to get half and half. He might get half the play by the signals, and then there could be a number that communicates to the wristband, and then he'll read it. Okay, what if we're in a no huddle situation? How are we going to communicate that same stuff to the players? Do we have two different types of communication systems? And then how does the quarterback communicate it to the players? Does he talk about personnel? Does he talk about formations? Does he talk about the play? Does he talk about what everybody has to do, or are people going to just kind of know what they're going to have to do? Then I talk about, you know, how are you going to make your practice work? So you've established an offense. You now have at least the basis of what you're trying to do. What comes next? Well, now we got to practice it. So how much time do you have for your offense? Are you going to be able to utilize, you know, 20 minutes? Does that give you enough plays? And then, you know, the biggest thing that you're going to find is, you know, it's simple math. If I have 20 plays and they run 3 different defenses, well, those 20 plays, I'm going to have to look at running them 60 times. So how am I going to have a chance to do that in the course of a day or a week in preparation for my game? Are you going to have meetings? Are you going to be able to show that? Some schools, I'm sure, have the ability to film practice and they show practice, and then you can make corrections. Some teams probably don't. They don't have that ability to run a meeting. So everything you do has got to be now coached on the field. They got to hear it, they got to see it, they got to do it. And how many plays can you run each day? And this is always the, like, you don't play the games on Monday to Friday. You play on Saturday. So you gotta be mindful of how many of these plays you're going to run on your offense throughout the week, so that they're not uh, crushed by the time the game time comes. So this is just a simple system that I've used in the past, talking about snap counts. Okay, basically sequencing things, simple. If we go goes green, green's first sound. If we went one, it would be red. So if we said the quarterback would go up in the huddle and say, call the play and say it's on red. We started using directions, because again, we talked about using words, getting away from the numbering system. So anything to the left, and in this year, and we changed this every year, this became changed. We used foods. So anything with an L in it meant we were going to run it to the left. Anything with an R in it to the right. Um, then anything with a P in it became a pass. And so we could go up to the line of scrimmage and say red lamb, and then we would get into our run plays of what we wanted to do. So for us, we looked at two back runs, we called cars, one back runs became animals. And as you can see, an overabundance of run plays, because some were two back heavy, some were one back heavy, some were better out of the gun, some were better under center. Again, I would be very critical of myself right now and say I've got to chop that down at least in half. But again, if we were going back to what we talked about here, we could go up to the line of scrimmage. We could say red, lamb, Lexus, and then off we go. And we could run an inside zone play out of two back, based off of those simple words of communicating to our players. We talk about passing trees. Well, one of the things that we started doing was passing trees became, as you can see, 1 to 9. It was only about half of the pass plays, or excuse me, half of the pass routes that you can use. So then we started putting letters to them, and then we started saying, okay, well, if I want to communicate, if I want my quarterback to communicate to a receiver, he can signal that play to him. And then we built this this whole system where quarterback could communicate to a receiver if we had a one-on-one matchup to the backside, and we thought that we had a chance to maybe run a seam on him. Off we go. He could communicate that. We talked about, obviously screens being a big part of every game. Well, how am I going to communicate the screen? And so we started using the letters of the receivers and saying, okay, the X receiver for us was a slot. Not everybody uses it that way, but that's just something that we've done. Became Rex and Lex, and then who's blocking, and then if we want to run a snap screen, that would be what we call row and low, because it went to W, and so on, as you can see. And the whole offense was based off of, well, we're a run heavy based team. So with running the ball, I want to be able to play action and do all those things, but I also want to be able to throw screens off of some of those same looks. And if we do that, now we're kind of in a good situation. Whoops. Then we talk about, obviously, the play action, RPO stuff, however you want to call it. And what are the plays that are sort of our main plays? Are we pulling somebody? How are we or is it straight play action and so on. So, you know, the reality is, as you can see from just this, that's a boat ton of words that we need to be able to communicate to our players, and the players have to understand what the words are. You know, I'll use the simple one here of counter. You know, that's we run counter. Well, we run a boot off a counter. We call it Wally and Warren. Okay, well, then there's two guys pulling. Now we're rolling away from the pullers. There's a lot of coaching points in there. And to go back to my beginning, I'm not going to run counter if I don't have O linemen that I don't think are athletic enough to run. So maybe that's a play that doesn't get utilized as much. And then now we talk about training camp. Okay, now I've got all these things. How am I going to break it down? Well, for us, we started. I just grabbed 2 days of a training camp years ago. The first day we were in two back, and we talked about our formations, how we were going to run those formations, what were the run plays out of our two back runs that we were going to use, what were the protections from play action to drop back, what were the route combinations we were going to use if we were in balance or in trips. And what we tried to do was make sure that we had carryover, that the plays and in the routes we ran from not only two back, but also out of one back when we get to the next day had a very similar look to them. And then obviously we add the screens to it. So as we got to the next day, what we tried to do was we tried to utilize the same plays only out of a different formation. So back then, Lexus would have been like an inside zone play, and Leopard would have been an inside zone play, one out of two back, one out of one back, trying to keep the world of our offensive linemen reasonably small, and then trying to match things from one back to two back all the way down the line. And if we were able to do that, now we got the basis for our offense for the whole season. The players understand the communication part, and we built an offense that suits the players, but also the coaches have the ability to coach it.